Yo guys, what is good? Welcome back on the Uncle Sharma channel. How are you guys doing? International break, a break from Inter. We definitely needed it, Inter fans. It's been a turbulent season. The only, saving grace of this season at the moment has been our Champions League run. The pressure keeps building on the team, on Inzaghi. If you follow Italian media, all the big outlets are putting out articles day after day after day. Inzaghi is devaluing the squad. Inzaghi is going to be fired. Inzaghi this, Inzaghi that. No, nothing is being said against the directors and the people who actually built this team, the ownership, the real reason for the struggles of this team. But me, you, everyone, we know the real reasons of the struggles of this Inter team. But before we get into the news, I just wanted to ask everyone to. It's gonna be an April of fire. It's gonna be a really, really difficult April, and I just want to compact the fan base. Can we all gather together and back this team, back these boys, back Inzaghi for this April month upcoming? Because I think we need it. There's starting to be, lots of, as I said, negative news around Inter, and I see the fan base starting to split, and there's a lot of frustration, which I also understand. I'm also very, very frustrated with how this season has been going, how this ownership just keeps, staggering, and we cannot grow with this ownership, and if anything we keep going further down and down. But let's stay together as a fan base, guys. Inter comes first, and this is the month that waits for us ahead. Starting right straight away, 1st of April, we return against Fiorentina. Lautaro and South Americans will be coming back from South America. How will they come back? We've got these injuries. Skriniar, we don't actually. We need to touch on Skriniar. Dzeko apparently has got back. Skriniar had a back problem. Now Dzeko has a back problem. I don't know what these guys they're not carrying Inter at the moment, so I don't know what their back hurts so much. If Lautaro's back was hurting or Onana's back was hurting, I don't understand. But yeah, straight after Fiorentina, we've got that Coppa Italia game, that which I keep repeating, I do not care about. Yes, it's Juve. Obviously, you always have to put a performance up against Juve, but to me, focus is top 4 in Serie A and Champions League. Then Salernitana, 3 days. Look at this, guys. Every 3 days, Inter are playing. And then obviously the massive Benfica game. Then Monza again, 4 days. And then 4 days Benfica. And then 4 days Empoli. And then 3 days Juventus. And then 4 days Lazio. It's absolutely packed, this fixture list. Not easy at all. This is going to be difficult, and we've seen this Inzaghi's team, the way this squad has been built, old squad, average age of the team every time we put out a team is at least 29 point something, or even 30 plus at some points if Dzeko and Andanovic play. Physiologically, this team just cannot handle this many games. We've seen it, not just this year, even under Conte. We only thrive under Conte once we left the Champions League, kicked out Coppa Italia, and we could focus on one competition. That's how this team can perform at its best. But as I said, first news I actually want to cover is around Skriniar. I mean, are we surprised anymore? Like, his behavior now since the PSG, news and his contract, the pre-contract news with PSG was signed or, confirmed. The way he's leaving us is definitely not the way I would have expected Milan Skriniar to be leaving. And so yeah, he's got these back issues. So he went to join the Slovakian national team. He got called up, and then their medical doctor, or whatever, the staff, they said that this guy is not ready to play for us. He's got they even said some disc issues, like the vertebrae disc issues. So it sounded almost quite serious. And apparently he's even now choosing to follow the suggestion of the PSG medical staff. I mean, is his mind already at PSG? So before going to Slovakia, on French instructions, he flew from Milan to Bordeaux on Monday and was visited in the presence of a PSG staff member. And then from this visit, Inter knew about it. Obviously not very happy. Inter Gazette. This is Gazette anyway. I think they're putting a bit of spice on a little mirt masala on the story, but it's probably true. Is he mentally already there, thinking about next year? With a fight, and we said, this really, really hot month coming up, very, very difficult end to the season. The professional relationship between the two is dwindling down. It's better not to raise any fuss. So Inter are not gonna do anything about this or fine him or make a fuss about it, but definitely not happy. Inter, of course, would have appreciated a different attitude, and we, yeah, I mean, there's nothing essentially wrong with it, in terms of obviously the club that he's going to play for next year, taking an interest in him, but it just kind of shows that, he's his mind kind of already thinking ahead to Paris, who, by the way, haven't qualified to the next stage of the Champions League. So, yeah. Milan Skriniar, why did it have to end like this? But anyway, speaking of next season, and for us, not for PSG, for Inter, Fabrizio Biazin giving us a kind of quick what to expect. I mean, I give this every summer to guys. Some people don't choose to listen to me and still think that we're gonna have, great lots of incomings in the transfer window. But basically, Fabrizio Biazin is saying expect more of the same, as we did last year. And actually, because last year, as he points out, and we discussed it last year, no big names left. If you think about it, last year, Skriniar was supposed to be the one, but in the end, we, I guess now in hindsight, definitely made the mistake of not selling him to PSG or not renewing him. That was the big mistake. So the club was focused on free transfers last year. So yeah, if the ownership doesn't change, which again, we hope every year that it does change, but at the moment, as things are, then we'll keep going like this. Indeed, we actually need to bring in money, low cost opportunities, just like we did last year. I think that's going to be the way forward. Not that doesn't necessarily mean we can build an interesting team. That is true, but that is on Marotta, Ausilio, thinking in a little bit of a different way, not just, and they've said, I mean, Marotta, as I keep saying, he's said at the beginning of the season that they're going to have to use more scouting. They're going to have to use different ways of approaching things. The cost is going to have to be reduced. So they've said that the approach is going to be slightly different. So let's see if they actually do that, whether they do or not, whether we trust them or not to do it in the correct way, like Napoli did, like Milan did recently. That's a different question. But just brace yourselves for another difficult summer window. And speaking of that, another guy, this is another thing that I've always said for the last few years. At Inter, every single player is up for sale every single winter, summer transfer window, whether it's Barella, whether it's Bastoni, whether it's Lautaro. If the right offer comes along, they're up for sale. There's no one that's untouchable. And now Onana, obviously, we know he's been performing really, really well for us. Goalkeeper position in modern football is a position that, there's not too many standouts, to be honest. A lot of keepers now obviously play, or the coaching, the profile people look for are, can they play with their feet before is he actually a good goalkeeper? Whereas Onana combines both of those things. He's amazing with his feet, with that Barcelona Ajax school of coaching, but he's also a solid goalkeeper, which to me is the most important thing. So no surprise, teams are going to come calling for him, and obviously we know where the money is, Premier League. According to reports, Chelsea, Man United, Spurs keen on Onana, and Inter would look to Empoli's Vicario as a replacement. So Gazzetta here says, for now anyway, says that the Nerazzurri aren't keen to sell the 26-year-old, and he would have every intention of staying. But we know, once the Premier League comes, the money comes, the higher salary offers come, those things can change. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised, if United want to replace De Gea. Spurs definitely need to upgrade on Lloris. Chelsea definitely need to upgrade on Edouard Mendy and Kepa. So those make sense. But it has to be, to me, it's kind of cut the cord quickly before I get attached to this guy, because I already feel like I am getting attached to this guy. His personality, his performances, his style of play, his interviews is always very open, very candid. I really, really know that I'm going to start to really like Onana. So if they're going to sell him, just sell him this summer before I get too attached to this guy. but it has to be 50 million plus. We're talking, if Kepa was bought for 70, we're talking, that kind of range. And then Vicario as a replacement, I do like him. He's young for a goalkeeper. Vicario, I think he's 26 as well, which is similar age to Onana. Obviously, he doesn't have any international experience like Onana, but up and coming. You sell Onana for 50, 60, 70 million, get Vicario in 15, 20 million. He's definitely not as good as Onana on the ball, Vicario, but shot stopping wise, he's really, really impressive. And obviously would be lower wages and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, it's not ideal. It's not what I want, but I can't see this happening. I don't know what you guys think. Apparently, there's already been contact between Inter and Vicario's agents. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Just again, a warning: don't get too attached to Onana. That's my warning. And now moving on to another player. This is not really transfer market related, and this is the the thumbnail I've chosen for today's video because it caught my attention. Robin Gosens he's been talking a lot actually to the media since he's come to Inter, especially when he goes back to Germany. Seems like he loves talking to the German media. And he was very open and candid about his time at Inter. The headline is "No regrets of joining Inter and playing one of the best clubs in the world." Actually, this is the news I want to cover first. So he blames himself for lack of playing time and not Inzaghi. So Robin Gosens, for me, this is my personal opinion. Some people might disagree with me. He has been as big of a flop as Tucu Correa because he cost in a similar range, around 28 million from Atalanta. We bought him whilst he was injured and he stayed injured for a while when we bought him. And then he just hasn't been able to, his performances just haven't been up to par to even over. Well, obviously they weren't going to overtake Perisic last year, who was, player of the season for me was for us. And then this year he hasn't been able to overtake Di Marco until the last few games, and then he got injured now again. But the difference between Gosens and Correa, which is why the fan base has never turned on on Gosens compared to Correa, is the attitude that he puts in. We know that this guy is a model professional, and whenever he speaks very openly and candidly, like he is here, who he spoke to German news outlet SZ. So he admitted that not being called up to the Qatar World Cup was a huge disappointment, the lowest point of his career so far. At the time, I wasn't playing enough and understood that. I myself was very disappointed with myself because I joined Inter with the aim of becoming a starter. If you sign for 30 million as a left back, that's a lot of money. Exactly. So I, for now, still repute him as a flop. And for his lack of playing time behind Perisic and Di Marco, Gosens said, "I blame myself. I was hoping that my chances for playing time with the national team would increase due to my move to Inter." But in reality, it was the opposite. Because I haven't gotten into the right physical condition to play as a starter. I was not the player who Inter had hoped they were getting. That is true. Part of the reason for that was they're still dealing with the aftermath of an injury, which I completely underestimated. We've heard this before from him as well. He completely underestimated that big injury he had at Atalanta. I'm a player who thrives in the physical side of the game, and for a long time out, I couldn't regain my fitness. This meant that I wasn't the player I wanted to be on the pitch. I was always a second late. And we see that as time at Inter, he's just always a little half a second behind the play. I was getting to the penalty area when the ball was already gone. In the defensive phase, I was either chasing the opponent back or I couldn't catch up to them at all. And so I couldn't play to my strengths. I can run up and down the pitch for 90 minutes and on my best days win most of my duels. And that's why, that describes, he knows what type of player he is. That's why I never was a big Robin Gosens fan, even when he was putting up those mad numbers at Atalanta. But I thought this year, injury behind him at the beginning of the season, my prediction was that he was going to be the starter ahead of Di Marco and put up double-digit numbers. That's clearly not turned out to be true. And Gosens has explained why. And then he did at least admit that he has no regrets of joining Inter and playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. In a different interview, again, talks about underestimating his injury. I'm a player who focuses on the physical side. I couldn't regain my fitness. But yeah, here he says, I play for one of the biggest clubs in Europe. We're in the last 8 of the Champions League, so there's no way I'm regretting this. And again, reiterated the World Cup disappointment. But again, yeah, this is my point where, with Correa, we've never really heard a mea culpa like this. We've never seen the attitude on the pitch, the hard work, the commitment, the fire, the hunger that we see with Gosens, even though he doesn't maybe not be at the physical best shape with Gosens. This is it is endearing, and this is why we want Gosens to succeed at Inter. We want Gosens to get more chances. Even Di Marco recently hasn't been stellar either after his injuries. So yeah, hoping to Gosens continuing to at least continue giving his best and trying to make his time at Inter a success. So yeah, what do you guys think of Gosens? Do you agree with me that he's a flop like Correa, or do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. Finally, I wanted to speak about the boy who yesterday, he's been making headlines in Italy, Matteo Retegui, the new striker that Mancini called up from Argentina to play for the Italian national team. That's how down bad Italy are at the moment. And he scored last night on his debut against England. Showed his quality. Very, very seems like a clinical fox in the box type of striker. Kind of reminds me of Immobile, like just in terms of his looks, or like Criscito, Zielinski. But in terms of style of play, yeah, you can see like Mancini compared him to Batistuta for his power. There's some comparisons to like Iaquinta, Belotti as well. Interesting player. But Inter have been linked with him recently. So the links are that, the club that he plays for, Tigre in Argentina. At the moment, we have Facundo Colidio, this fella who's been loaned out there. So we could use Colidio, who has been doing well for them, as kind of a cash plus, Colidio offer. Apparently, they want 25 million, and I'm sure this was actually before Retegui scored yesterday. So if Tigre wanted 25 million before Euros, the price probably shot up after the debut with Italy and scoring yesterday for Italy. But apparently Inter value Colidio at 10 million, which is fair. If these guys are going to value this guy for 25, we have to value Colidio a little bit higher than probably he's actually worth. He's probably, he's probably a type of striker that Inter need, in terms of he seems to be quite clinical. That's what we really need up front with Lautaro, Dzeko. Those two are not clinical at all. Lukaku's probably not going to be confirmed. He does have a bit of physicality and pace about him, but I don't know. I think, that 25 million is a little bit steep for a guy who's, already 23, and, I don't see his ceiling being that high, but I can see why Inter are linked with him. I don't know what you guys think of it down below. But at least he's not 35. That's one positive. At least he's someone that has growth and a ceiling to reach, rather than someone who's already reached that, was on the way down, and we can resell him. It seemed like he adapted well to the Italian national team yesterday straight away. These are the news for this international break at the moment. Keep a lookout. Of course, we'll be doing more content in this international break, and I want to hear all your thoughts down below of everything that's going on at Inter at the moment. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Ciao ragazzi, always Forza Inter.